Coming up on today's episode of Airborne Unlimited, Lone Star Flight Museum postpones grand opening, Huntington Beach Airshow facing large funding gap, and fully outfitted Gulfstream G600 test aircraft completes first flight. Hello, I'm Christopher Ciodum. It's September 1st, 2017, and this is Airborne Unlimited. The Lone Star Flight Museum at Ellington Field will postpone both its ribbon-cutting ceremony today, September 1st, and grand opening celebration the next day. Due to weather impacts from Hurricane Harvey and current rescue and recovery efforts, we will postpone our ribbon-cutting and grand opening until a more appropriate time, said Douglas H. Owens, Lieutenant General, retired CEO, Lone Star Flight Museum. Our thoughts and prayers are with our staff and community and all those affected by the storm and flooding. We will support recovery efforts as we are able and look forward to bringing our new museum to Houston when it's time. Breaking ground almost a year and a half ago at Ellington Airport, the new $38 million, 130,000 square foot aviation history and STEM facility will share the story of flight in the Lone Star State and feature the contributions Texas and Texans have made to aviation. Highlights of the museum include interactive exhibits focused on science, technology, engineering, and math concepts essential to flight, a $1 million aviation learning center, the Texas Aviation Hall of Fame, a flying collection of historically significant aircraft. After drawing 560,000 attendees and losing $400,000 in its inaugural year, the Huntington Beach, California Airshow was not showing any signs of being more financially sound. At a presentation given to the Huntington Beach City Council Monday, city officials learned that there is already an estimated $350,000 funding gap for this year's show, which is scheduled for September 29th through October 1st. Overall, the show is expected to cost about $975,000. The council directed city manager Fred Wilson to look at ways the city can provide financial support to AirSupport LLC, the operator of the event. The operator says more than 1 million people are expected to attend this year's event, but such major shows normally don't see a profit for 3 to 5 years. So the council should look at it as an investment in the long-term venture. Major draws for the 2017 show are the Blue Angels and the Canadian Snowbirds. Last year, the Thunderbirds and Breitling Jet Team headlined the event. Admission for the show is free, and a portion of proceeds from vendors goes to Aerospace Educational Foundation of Huntington Beach. After the break, fully outfitted Gulfstream G600 completes first flight.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonix Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonixaerospace.com.
Welcome back. If you would like to be a supporter of Airborne Unlimited, send an email to jim@aero-news.net. The final aircraft in the Gulfstream G600 flight test program has flown for the first time. Outfitted with a complete interior, the aircraft serves as a cabin testbed to ensure a superior customer experience. The aircraft is the fifth to join the G600 flight test program since it began on December 17, 2016. The G600 took off from Savannah Hilton Head International Airport at 3:07 p.m. During the 2-hour and 50-minute flight, the aircraft reached 51,000 feet, a speed of Mach 0.85. The aircraft landed back in Savannah at 6:02 p.m. local time. Gulfstream will conduct repeated operations of all cabin systems to evaluate comfort, layout, noise, ergonomics, functionality, passenger interaction, and appliance reliability. To date, the G600 program's 5 test aircraft have accumulated more than 180 flights and 790 flight hours. We now have 10 aircraft flying in our current Gulfstream G500 and G600 flight test programs, said Mark Burns, President, Gulfstream. Gulfstream anticipates receiving FAA type certification for the all-new G600 in 2018, while delivery is scheduled for later that year. It's Friday, and that means it's time for A&N CEO and Editor-in-Chief Jim Campbell to check in with his weekly Barnstorming commentary. But relax, you don't have to deal with Jim this week. Instead, in light of some recent efforts by AOPA to deal with FBO issues, we've invited AOPA Boss Mark Baker to explain AOPA's rationale for their legal stance. Here's this week's Barnstorming.
Hello, my name is Mark Baker, President of AOPA. And thanks, Jim, for allowing us the opportunity to talk about these Part 13 complaints that you've seen today. These Part 13 complaints are about protecting our access to our general aviation airports at reasonable and fair prices. So how do we get there? We started looking at this about 6-8 months ago with hundreds of complaints coming in around the country from either transients or based customers at certain one of these airports. We identified 5 airports that seemed to be big problems: Heber City, Utah; Rochester, Minnesota; Waukegan, Illinois; Asheville, North Carolina; and Key West, Florida. We worked with those pilots to file what is a Part 13 complaint, which puts the airport sponsor on notice these airports are not compliant with the grant assurance programs as provided by the FAA, which calls for fair and reasonable pricing, non-discriminatory pricing, so that we can have access to the ramp space at reasonable prices, that the infrastructure is available to us that has been paid for by the taxpayers over and over and over. We want the FAA and the airport operator to come together and work with the FBO. In this case, it happens to be the first 3 Part 13 complaints were filed against Signature, to respond in a positive way about how do we keep increased traffic going to these airports. How do we be fair? How do we be reasonable and not just allow monopolistic opportunities to become insidious and price the general aviation traffic away from these airports that are public use? This is something we take very seriously in a way that we're going to work together with the community, work together with pilots, work together with the FAA and the airport sponsors to find a way to make sure, whether it's free transient parking spaces or low-cost transient parking spaces for services that we don't need or use, we don't become victims of high-priced ramp fees or overpriced fuel in some cases. This is something that I need your help in identifying future reports that may have this behavior. We want to work together to find a solution to make sure that we don't lose access to these airports and these airport sponsors don't lose the businesses that general aviation brings to these airports.
After these messages, Midwest LSA Expo is set for September 7th through 9th.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
With so much news coming out of the aviation industry, we're summarizing a few of those other great stories in a brief segment we call Around the Patch. Midwest LSA Expo is the place to be for sport aviation this September, according to the event's organizers. Many light sport aircraft will be on display, including Part 103 STOL and gyroplanes. The event is set for September 7th through 9th. Visitors can shop for the latest in aviation gadgets and services or sit in one of the many informative seminars and forums. Best of all, it's free to enter the expo, park, and camp. 2 months following T-Mobile's meeting with Safran USA's executives at the Paris Airshow, the company has announced it is investing in the city. Safran will open a manufacturing operation at Mobile Aeroplex at Brooklyn and hire 20 employees over the next 3 years. The company will produce and install aircraft engine nacelles at this facility. Boeing is committing $1 million from the Boeing Charitable Trust to assist with disaster relief across Texas in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, the company announced today. The contributions will be directed through the American Red Cross for Hurricane Harvey relief efforts. The Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission has awarded a $15,000 grant to Ada City Schools to help establish its new aviation program. The grant was one of 25 made to organizations across the state, totaling $270,000. They will be used to educate Oklahoma students in STEM careers. The city schools will use the one-year grant to help fund a program called The Sky is Not the Limit, designed to introduce students to career opportunities in the aviation industry. Dozens of Teamsters Local 2727 aircraft mechanics and related classifications protested outside one of UPS's largest air hubs located in Ontario, California, Monday and Tuesday, saying they're ready to do whatever it takes to settle a fair contract that protects the health benefits they and their families depend on. The protests were held as the mechanics head back to the bargaining table with UPS. Well, that's it for today's trip around the patch. Now, let's get back to the rest of the news. The airport master plan developed for the city of Mankato, Minnesota, for Mankato Regional Airport calls for the construction of a control tower and additional hangars while expanding the terminal and the presence of Minnesota State University at the airport. It also has plans for accommodating unmanned aircraft at the facility. But there's a fly in the ointment. The FAA has discounted the airport's recent activity numbers or future activity projections. The FAA sent a letter to the city saying it doesn't concur with the 20-year outlook forecast by the city. The consultants that prepared the master plan told the city council Monday night that there has been a steady growth at the airport since 2009 and that it is expected to continue. There has been an influx of private businesses, and the Minnesota State Aviation Program is currently providing flight training to some 200 students at KMKT. The long-range plan even includes housing for MSU aviation students at the airport, as well as other pilots who might come to take advantage of training and certification opportunities. Well, that's our program for today. Remember that Airborne Unlimited stream daily, Monday through Friday, with additional breaking news bulletins for important stories that fall outside of our normal deadlines. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, and do check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. Keep flying. We'll see you Tuesday